The sun had barely begun its ascent, casting gentle rays upon the sleepy neighborhood as John pounded the pavement on his morning run. Each stride felt grounded, each breath intentional, as he relished the solitude and serenity of the dawn. It was a rare moment of peace for John, a decorated veteran who had seen too much of the world's chaos and sought solace in the rhythmic pounding of his feet. But today, that peace would be shattered. Returning to his quiet cul-de-sac, John immediately noticed something was amiss. Parked haphazardly near his driveway was an unmarked vehicle, its presence incongruous with the stillness of the morning. An uneasy feeling prickled at the back of his neck, which only intensified as he drew closer to his home, his sanctuary. There on the porch stood a group of men dressed in uniforms that mimicked authority, yet lacked its legitimacy. Tension hung heavy in the air, and his heart sank at the sight of his wife, Emily, seated on the cold cement steps, her hands bound with metal, her face a portrait of pain and fear. John's disciplined demeanor momentarily faltered as rage surged through his veins. Emily, usually so full of life, now looked pale and vulnerable. Her dark hair clung to her tear-streaked cheeks, evidence of a struggle far more profound than the one imposed by these impostors. John's eyes locked onto hers, seeking understanding amidst the turbulence, a glance that conveyed both her suffering and relief at his presence. The bastion of calm and strength she desperately needed had arrived. "What's going on here?" John's voice cut through the morning stillness, carrying with it the authority of a man accustomed to command. The impersonating enforcers, an ill-matched collection of ill-fitting uniforms, turned to him with a mixture of annoyance and faux importance. One stepped forward, a self-satisfied smirk playing on his lips. "Your wife here violated HOA regulations," he said, gesturing dismissively to the innocuous potted plant beside Emily. "It's a $100 fine." John's eyes blazed with disbelief and fury. "She's having a medical emergency," he exclaimed, his voice trembling with the effort to maintain control. "Are you all blind?" The nearest man shifted uncomfortably, but the smirk didn't leave his face, nor did the handcuffs that dug into Emily's wrists. Unfazed by protocol, John took a step forward, fury transforming into action. "Release her, now," he commanded, his tone brooking no argument. The confrontation held a palpable tension, a standoff between a man who truly understood the weight of authority and those who crudely impersonated it. Reluctantly, the ringleader fished a key from his pocket, releasing Emily from her metal bonds. She fell into John's arms, tears of pain mingling with those of gratitude. Surveying the scene, John felt a roaring sense of injustice. How had authority been so twisted, so misused? In that moment, the implications reached beyond his personal world, touching every corner of the community he vowed to protect. A fire kindled within him. There would be a reckoning. This could not, and would not, stand. John's living room had become a command center of sorts. Papers and documents strewn across the coffee table as he meticulously pieced together the ugly truth lurking beneath the veneer of suburban peace. Fueled by an outrage that seared with the intensity of a live wire, he channeled his military training into uncovering the insidious plot that had ensnared his family in its grasp. Each night, after whispering reassurances to Emily as she drifted into a fitful sleep, he would return here. His resolve hardened into a singular focus: uncover and dismantle the false authority that had desecrated their lives. Starting with threads pulled from casual neighborhood conversations about the HOA's unusual zeal, John began to weave a tapestry of disturbing revelations. It didn't take long to notice a pattern. Each infraction, no matter how minute, was met with a hefty fine and a visit from those bogus enforcers. Wordlessly, he mapped out incidents, arranging them into an elaborate but coherent conspiracy. The list of those affected was extensive, turning neighbors into victims under a false banner of community betterment. In his quest, John paid particular attention to the HOA president, Ronald. Ostensibly just an overzealous bureaucrat, Ronald's facade crumbled under scrutiny, revealing a man ensnared by his machinations. John delved into public records, financial disclosures, and anecdotal testimonies, understanding that Ronald wasn't merely conducting an overzealous operation. He was a desperate man drowning in debt. One revelation led to another, outlining a narrative of misuse of power driven by financial desperation. The fines, John realized, were not about maintaining aesthetics or adhering to community values. They were revenue, funneling directly into Ronald's pockets to keep his spiraling debts at bay. The revelation was like a punch to the gut. How many families had been targeted? How much money had been unjustly extorted to sustain Ronald's facade of normalcy? John's determination only grew as he recalled the sight of Emily, handcuffed and helpless. Returning to the present, he filed these revelations meticulously, documenting every interaction, every complaint of wrongful fines, and each unsolicited enforcer visit. His pulse quickened with each piece of evidence, forming a noose tightening around Ronald's neck. John's findings extended beyond mere speculation. He began reaching out to others, those who had whispered about strange encounters or voiced frustrations over impossible fines. His determination was not just to expose but to rally, galvanizing his community as a collective force against the deception that had undermined their trust. The conversations that followed were transformative, neighbors finding courage in shared narratives, their simmering discontent brewing into a storm of justice. Through this, John transformed from a lone investigator into a de facto leader, relentless in his pursuit of a broader reckoning. As the days passed, it became clear that Ronald's web of deception was more intricate than anyone had first understood. But John was undeterred. This betrayal would not go unpunished. He carefully laid his plans, preparing to confront Ronald with indisputable proof of his actions, an act that would not only unseat a false leader but restore justice to a community in desperate need of it. The legal route had been John's first line of defense, an avenue that he believed held the promise of justice, fortified by law and predicated on truth. Yet, as he navigated the labyrinthine corridors of bureaucracy, it began to dawn on him that this path was fraught with obstacles, each more insidious than the last. Emily's condition worsened. The emotional and physical toll of her ordeal made each day an anchor, pulling his spirit deeper into the mire of helplessness. Sitting in dimly lit meeting rooms, John faced officials whose eyes glazed over as he presented his case, accompanied by meticulously organized evidence that should have shaken any moral compass. His earnest presentation met with nods that were polite at best, dismissive at worst, their hollow assurances echoing in his ears. The pattern was always the same, encouraging words, followed by non-committal promises. Then, ultimately, nothing. A new kind of disillusionment took root in John's heart as he watched the gears of justice grind to a halt before they even began turning. Each setback was a sucker punch to his faith, revealing a system that favored complexity over clarity and connections over conscience. Through subdued whispers and subdued knowing glances, he discerned a murkier world pulsing beneath the surface. Ronald, it seemed, was more deeply entrenched than an elected figurehead. He was a puppet master, with strings reaching into places John hadn't anticipated, local officials, board members, and those who preferred the status quo. Each thread of Ronald's influence unraveled a tapestry of complacency and complicity, warding off external threats to his illicit empire. John's frustration began as a simmer, slowly boiling over as he realized the scope of Ronald's reach. He witnessed firsthand how bureaucracy could smother truth with a suffocating blanket of red tape and procedural dead ends. This wasn't just about uncovering wrongdoing. It was a battle against an entrenched system designed to insulate its favored sons from accountability. Every decision not taken, every paper pushback screamed of inadequacy and apathy, deafening in its tacit approval of Ronald's deceit. His hopes dimmed momentarily, overtaken by a burning sense of powerlessness. Yet this same hopelessness acted as a crucible, hardening his resolve amidst the cacophony of silence. Each failed endeavor fueled John's determination to find a breakthrough, though the means were yet unclear. Forced to retreat and reassess, he was determined that his next move would be unexpected, a strike from a direction Ronald had not anticipated. John's thoughts returned always to Emily, whose quiet strength and fragile health galvanized him against despair. Amidst these trials, John came to understand a hard truth. True justice was often a casualty of convenience, sacrificed on the altar of influence and fear. But he was a man untouched by both and unyielding in his love for his family. This crucible of frustration and rage was not his defeat, but a transformative process. He was being tempered into a weapon that would pierce the seemingly invincible armor of Ronald's protection. This battle would turn personal, fueled not by vengeance alone, but by an unyielding quest for restitution, for Emily, for his community, and for the principles that defined him. John could feel the tempest building inside him, a potent mix of anger, duty, and unyielding resolve. He had spent countless nights at his dining table, papers sprawled around him, plotting a counterattack that would cut through the thick vines of corruption strangling his community. His military training had given him an appreciation for both strategy and precision, skills he now found indispensable in his personal crusade for justice. He knew that the battle for truth demanded more than just evidence. It required a tactical approach to shift the balance of power. Each piece of evidence he meticulously gathered was another weapon in his arsenal. He compiled sworn affidavits from neighbors similarly ensnared by Ronald's machinations, collected unfiled complaints that had languished in bureaucratic limbo, and curated photographs and recordings that painted an unequivocal picture of deceit. The neighborhood, once skeptical and wary, began to rally behind him, their trust in John growing as he illuminated the sinister operations lurking beneath their idyllic suburban life. They transformed from isolated victims into a cohesive force, galvanized by shared grievances and a collective thirst for renewal. With the groundwork laid, John carefully devised a plan for the public confrontation. A tactical strike aimed squarely at the heart of the corruption. He chose the venue with strategic precision, a community hall where the neighborhood association held its meetings. It was symbolic, transforming a space of manipulated governance into an arena of truth. On the night of the meeting, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Upon entering, John felt a wave of adrenaline surging through him. The hall was packed, buzzing with murmurs of speculation. Residents sat shoulder to shoulder, a sea of purpose united under the low hum of anticipation. At the front, a table was arranged for the board, with Ronald occupying the center chair, his visage one of unflinching authority, or so he thought. As the meeting commenced, John rose with calm determination, his presence commanding attention and silence. Every eye was upon him as he made his way to the podium. He opened with a succinct recap of his findings, the cadence of his voice steady and firm. Each word landed with weight. Names, dates, infractions, all corroborated by irrefutable proof. Gasps erupted from the crowd as John unveiled the extent of Ronald's betrayal, the damning evidence unfolding like a crescendo that swept through the hall. John's presentation was an unrelenting barrage, dismantling the facade Ronald had so carefully constructed. The room pulsed with growing outrage, each revelation seeding disbelief that erupted into a chorus demanding accountability. Faces shifted from shock to anger, their collective will crystallizing into a single, resolute purpose. Ronald, stripped of his veneer, attempted rebuttals, but faltered beneath the avalanche of evidence. The indignation of his peers was a palpable force, their loyalty incinerated by the flames of revelation. John had not only exposed Ronald's deceit, but ignited a fierce unity among the residents, a clarion call that no longer would they be subject to manipulation at the hands of false authority. As John concluded, a profound silence settled over the room, the air thick with the aftermath of monumental truth. The community had witnessed the unveiling of corruption, their faith now fortified in the knowledge that justice, though delayed, was within their grasp. For John, the evening marked both a vindication and a shared resolution. The fight for justice was no longer his alone. He had transformed his outrage into empowerment, and from the embers of his private struggle, a unified front had emerged. The atmosphere in this courthouse was charged with a tense anticipation, the culmination of weeks of building momentum. News of the neighborhood meeting had spread quickly, drawing scores of residents and observers eager to see the fallout from John's bold exposé. John stood among them, his presence stalwart yet simmering beneath the surface, a reflection of the smoldering discontent that had galvanized their community. Ronald, summoned to account for his actions, bore an air of stubborn self-importance. His confidence, bolstered by years of unchallenged authority and influence, began to fray as the weight of the allegations became an undeniable reality. His bravado was now a poorly woven cloak, ill-suited for the intense scrutiny of truth's piercing glare. He shuffled through the crowd, his posture rigid and defiant, yet something in his eyes betrayed the cracks in his composure. The proceedings began, voices echoing off the ornate walls of the courthouse, a stage set for justice. Each accusation, articulated with precision, chipped away at Ronald's defenses, laying bare the reality of his transgressions. The facade of a community stalwart, presented for so long, crumbled to reveal the hollow ambitions and deceit it had masked. The intricacies of his schemes, financial fraud, intimidation, misuse of power, were laid open for all to see, a tapestry of corruption unraveling with methodical precision. It was amidst this maelstrom of revelation and rancor that John seized his moment. Driven by a palpable sense of justice, he moved decisively, handcuffs clinking with authority in his grasp. The action was swift, a symbolic reclamation of the power Ronald had misappropriated. Before the gathered throng's astonished eyes, John clasped the metal restraints around Ronald's wrists, affixing him to a courthouse bench. The image was jarring, transformative, an unassailable statement of accountability rendered in the stark reality of cold steel. The spectacle of Ronald shackled, stripped of pretense, punctuated the proceedings with a thunderous clarity. A collective murmur rippled through the crowd, the shared intake of breath a testament to the profound shift that had just occurred. No longer was this about individual grievances, but a collective stand against the tyranny of the corrupted. The call to law enforcement was immediate, a testament to the newfound resolve to uphold justice where it had so long been absentee. Officers, weary of their own past frustrations with Ronald's untouchable status, responded swiftly, ushering him into custody. A cheater's gambit, dismantled. With each click of the handcuffs, a layer of impunity peeled away, exposing the raw nerve of truth he had tried so desperately to hide. As Ronald was led away, the community coalesced around John, no longer disparate voices but a unified chorus, demanding not just accountability but systemic change. The courthouse had become a crucible, forging their shared indignation into an unbreakable resolve. They insisted on a restructuring of the HOA leadership, determined to rebuild with transparency and integrity as their guiding principles. John's role had been pivotal, a catalyst for the metamorphosis of their neighborhood. He had channeled his personal fury and righteous anger into an act that ignited a sweeping change. The isolation of his initial struggle yielded to the warmth of collective action. There, within the courthouse, amid the whispers of revitalized hope, John realized that his fight had transcended his personal vendetta. It had become their fight, a shared battle for dignity, fairness, and the reclamation of a community spirit united under the banner of justice. The dawn of a new era broke gently over the neighborhood, its warmth breathing life into a community reborn from the ashes of distrust and manipulation. In the weeks following Ronald's arrest, a palpable energy had taken hold, a fervent desire not just to replace what had been torn down, but to build anew, weaving threads of integrity into the very fabric of their local governance. At the heart of this transformation was John, no longer the lone voice in the wilderness, but a respected leader, his vision for justice realized through the collective action of his once fractured community. With Ronald's machinations dismantled, the HOA underwent a profound metamorphosis. No longer a vehicle for autocracy and avarice, it became a beacon of transparency and egalitarianism. The creation of new bylaws, crafted with care and community input, ensured that power was fairly distributed and that all residents had a voice. Committees were formed to oversee important decisions, rotating leadership roles to prevent the reemergence of entrenched control. Open forums and regular town halls became the norm, each a testament to the neighborhood's commitment to the principles of fairness and accountability that John had so ardently championed. At home, the quiet revolution echoed with healing. Emily, whose spirit had been tested by the ordeal, found solace in the embrace of a community galvanized by her husband's unwavering resolve. As she walked through their sun-bathed garden, the vibrancy of flourishing blooms mirrored her own recovery, a reminder that beauty often emerged, even amidst chaos. Her health, once an embattled landscape, began to stabilize as the stress and trauma of recent months receded, replaced by a deepening sense of serenity and hope. John's heart swelled with gratitude as he witnessed these changes, both personal and communal. His neighbors, once disparate individuals bound only by proximity, had coalesced into a formidable unity, brought together by shared values and a renewed sense of purpose. Their gatherings now hummed with laughter and camaraderie, the air alive with stories and dreams, those of families building a better present, inspired by the lessons of their past. The landscape of the neighborhood shifted in tangible ways, too. Shared spaces were revitalized, gardens tended with collective pride, pathways brightened by colorful art projects initiated by enthusiastic youth. Block parties and communal events became celebrations of their newfound solidarity, each occasion a reaffirmation of their journey from darkness into light. John often reflected on this transformation, standing quietly amid the neighborhood's joyous reaffirmation of community. His mind sometimes lingered on the struggles, on the red tape, the legal battles, the near-overwhelming frustration. But now they served as journeyman's tales, narratives of growth amidst adversity rather than shadows of regret. The triumph of reform had validated his efforts, weaving a narrative of redemption that resonated through the very streets he and Emily called home. In ensuring a just and safe environment, John had fulfilled far more than a personal quest for justice. He had cemented a legacy, one that would guard against complacency and protect the essence of community for generations yet to come. The neighborhood's transformation was complete, standing as a testament to the enduring power of collective action, courage, and the unyielding pursuit of justice.